Got anything? Jack asked Nika as he laid back, staring up the bright sky above while idly holding the butt of the fishing rod securely between his legs. Nope, the Kizzen sighed, as her tail swayed back and forth behind her. Whatever creatures lurk in these waters aren't biting today. That's sometimes the luck of it, Jack chuckled. My granddad took us out to sea on his boat twice. The first time we were sailing around wherever we could, but we didn't catch anything. But the second time all you had to do was throw the lure in and you'd hook something within only a few seconds. Well, we ain't getting any luck here, the Kizzen smirked back, but I'm cool with it. Even if we haven't caught anything, there's something about this that just feels peaceful. Well, we actually have a decent connection with nature out here, rather than just some park, Jack shrugged. I guess for me it's being out of the city and away from all the craziness. Here, there's nothing of that. At least that's how it feels to me. Just us on a boat drifting on the river, with nothing but the sounds of wind and water to accompany us. I must admit, this is a comfortable environment to meditate in, Chio added tentatively, not wanting to disturb their reverie. And I guess for you two it's that state between resting and actually doing something that works so well for you. Sure. I definitely want to keep trying this. Maybe we can finally catch something. Nika sighed dreamily. Sadly, I know of no places in the city where such a thing could be done. If there was such a place, it would surely be overrun by the desperate looking for a meal. We do have a school break coming up in a few weeks, Allura noted. We'll need to have a think about what we want to do. I'll leave it up to you, Jack chuckled. If it was me on Earth, I'd probably be gaming all the time if I had the choice, unless I'm dragged along against my will to see one of my aunts or uncles. Gaming or holiday doesn't seem too bad. Scifi perked up with a grin, as she typed away distractedly on her comlink. It wouldn't for you, Chio rolled her eyes. How goes your tinkering? The encryption on this thing isn't bad, but it's not the best either. The guy I belonged to was really sure of himself. Scifi shrugged. Got a few names of a few regulator officers, and it looks like almost the entire order was there. All of them? Jack asked curiously. Surely they'd leave some behind to keep the lights on. They seemed determined enough. Maybe they didn't want to take any chances, Allura reasoned. We did evade them once before, after all. Heh, well, partly that, and also because they got promised a shit ton of credits if they eliminated us. Scifi pointed out with a humorous snort, as she turned her comlink around and showed the others the very large number on the screen. Fuck me sideways, that's a lot of money, Nika muttered under her breath. Wait, what do you mean us? Chio asked, noticing the Skritter's wording. Exactly what I said. Scifi looked at them, showing her screen. Sorry, Jack, but you're not the only member of the Cool Kids Club anymore. While you were the primary objective, the Redeemer wanted the rest of us all dead too. How the fuck did the Redeemer get that much money? Nika asked, baffled. He was an Inquisitor of Cyros. Pretty sure they don't get paid that well. They don't, Allura confirmed. And the Church of Cyros posted the largest bounty on the Redeemer, so maybe they stole the money from them? That would make sense if that's what happened, though it doesn't explain why he even came for us in the first place, Chio pondered. Because my bounty went up after the last clown attack? Jack pointed out with a shrug. Plus, he was batshit insane. Oh yeah, we weren't the only targets the Redeemer was after, Scifi added. I've got some references here to other objectives. I'm trying to recompile those files, but one of them is definitely Devil's Daughter based on all the references I've seen. Could you try and identify some of the other targets? Allura asked, as the Skritter nodded. Sure, already got the software running. Just got to make sure there aren't any traps on this thing. There probably isn't, but it's better to make sure. They definitely did some research on us before their ambush, so I'm not taking any chances, she warned. Their force may seem prepared for me, Chio agreed. Thanks for giving me the water I needed to beat her, Scifi. Sure, no problem, the Skritter grinned, knowing she had set off the fire suppression system by accident, and it was almost a miracle it still worked. Yeah, they clearly knew about our brooches of disguise too, Jack added. The Redeemer instantly knew who I was, so they were definitely ready for it. I guess we couldn't Sean King this shit forever. Jack, outside of references, we know Getty, Scifi reminded him, playfully poking him with her foot. Anyway, got some references for a Nira, so let me just... Huh? What? Nika asked, sitting up. Scifi typed away to double-check, then turned the comlink around for them all to see. Jack sitting upright as he recognized the picture. Svartal. Well, that likely rules out House Malkar funding them, Chio quipped. But why would Svartal be on their hit list? Might be the clowns seeking revenge? Allura reasoned, sounding very unsure. They're the only ones with reason to target us, Svartal and Devil's Daughter, right? With a fat stack of cash like that? Nika questioned disbelievingly. It's plausible, but most of the nuts simping for the clowns aren't that rich. Well, we know of one guy that's associated with the clowns, Jack pointed out. Dr. Grine. Could he be behind this somehow? Maybe. He's obviously got direct course to go for both you and Devil's Daughter, Scifi pointed out. But not the Gold Scout dickhead. It's very much unlike the clowns to directly use patsies, assuming they even have that capability. Dr. Grine infiltrating and sabotaging Clan Barsam security surprised a lot of people. Nobody even knew he could somehow associate with the clowns at all. And nobody would know today had I not found him, Jack added. Grine doing this on his own would make more sense, but it doesn't explain why Sparta would be on the list, Nika shrugged. Probably someone else. Alright, Allura sighed. Scifi? Yep. I'll keep digging and see what I find, the Skritter nodded, as several of the crew of river giants approached them, the wooden planks underneath them creaking as they did. They looked strange, all wearing what looked like primitive armor made out of thick blocks of wood tied together with bound reeds, and carrying various ramshackle-looking polearm weapons, like spears, halberds, and glaives. Jack could also see that many of the guards also carried some huge crossbows, with bolts to match almost the size of his arm. What's up? Nika asked, quickly springing to her feet. Greetings. I am Rapids on Rivers, the lead guard, a male with a thick ginger beard, addressed them. The captain asked us to check on you and inform you that we're soon approaching the Forest of Fangs. We're setting up guards and getting ourselves ready. Then so shall we, Allura nodded as everyone snapped to attention. Ready up, everyone. So, the Forest of Fangs. Jack spoke up to fill the silence as the river gradually narrowed, until Jack was sure he could just jump off onto dry land on either side. Why is it called that exactly? Yes, Rapids on Rivers whispered back to him. We name it for the titanous trees and the hungry beasts that lurk within. Oh, lovely, he sarcastically noted with a deep sigh. We do not usually find trouble in this place, the river giant retorted. We sail with caution. That being said, how do you wish us to engage? Allura asked, fidgeting with her wands. Only engage if anything gets too close or is clear hostile intent, Captain Ripples on Salt told them as he approached them. We do not want to start any unnecessary fights, but we shall end the ones that find us without hesitation. Enough to ward them off, then. Got it, Nika grinned, as she checked the sights of her plasma rifle, while the river giants around them put the finishing touches on the temporary walls to act as cover. Is everybody ready? Captain Ripples on Salt called out to the crew. Hi, Captain! All voices barked back. Woof! Dante barked, getting up from his nap. No use delaying, then, the captain sighed. Onward! As the riverboat slowly edged closer to the ominous threshold of the Forest of Fangs, a palpable tension filled the air around the group like a dense fog. The once gentle lapping of the river waves seemed to subside, giving way to silence as they entered the forest. The trees around them were massive, easily rivaling the size of city blocks from Earth, and loomed over them all like mute sentinels, with their large, thick branches crisscrossing above them like gnarled fingers, casting long, eerie shadows across the water, barely allowing any light through as the river giants strode around the ship with practiced discipline, as they lit a few lanterns to allow them to see where they were going. The atmosphere was heavy with the scent of decay and damp earth, mingling with a strong, sharp tang of pine, and the faint hint of something more sinister lurking beneath. Each member of the group felt the weight of unease settling like a heavy cloak upon their shoulders, and more than once they felt the need to say something, anything, to break the deafening silence that surrounded them, which was only otherwise broken by the occasional creak of the boat's timbers, or the distant call of a bird. The hours passed this way with little activity, and slowly the crew and passengers of the riverboat began to relax and be at ease, as the forest seemed to show some signs of life. As they rounded one of the bends in the river, Jack spotted a small herd of creatures emerging from the forest to drink daintily from the water's edge. Green fur to almost match the mossy background, with 6 hoof feet and 4 eyes, likely to give them a wide range of vision and movement. The best Jack could equate these creatures to was a mix of a giraffe and a deer, with long necks and pale blue ivory antlers, with the largest standing gracefully with a darker shade. The moment the boat got close, they bounded off skittishly in the tree line, and even Cheer was captivated by the awe and majesty of the animals, with Scifi taking a picture. Not 20 minutes later, they spotted a group of long-footed, grey-feathered birds perched on the gnarled branches of a long-fallen tree, looking for their next meal. As the boat approached, they looked up expectantly from the river towards the crew, as the captain laughed, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a bit of jerky, tearing it as small as his giant hands could manage, and rubbing it between his hands before throwing it towards the birds, who greedily pounced on the food as they passed them by. But it wasn't just animals Jack heard. "Hey, guys, there's something on our left," Jack whispered, keeping his voice low so as not to startle the others. "I think it's following us. Whatever it is, I think they're just below the ridge to the side." "Let me see." Nika perked up for a moment, pulling out a device that looked like some kind of scope of a sniper rifle, following Jack's gaze. She waited for a few moments before nodding. "Yeah, you might be right. I can't see anything, but this is a directional microphone. I hear the sounds of movement in the distance, as if something was running away." "Better call it in." Cheer exited her meditations to look at them. "I cannot detect anything at this range." Guys?" Alora spoke up, catching the attention of the river giant guards keeping watch at the very front of the ship. "We might have something shadowing us." "We've always had beasties and other such shadowing us from the land," Rapids on Rivers informed them all, "but we pay them no mind as long as they do no harm. They're likely just shadowing us as we move through their hunting grounds." "Or scoping you out for a possible ambush," Jack pointed out. "Just because they're hiding out of sight doesn't mean they don't mean you harm."
"This is true. However, we are well guarded from attacks."
Priestess Flosin Stream spoke up, having overheard the conversation as she made her rounds to check the well-being of the crew.
"I'll inform the captain, but the most that usually happens is a few sightings before we make it through the forest. But thank you for informing us. None of my people would have been able to spot something like that." "You're welcome. I hope things will be as you say."
Alora nodded, though slowly turned to the others with a knowing look. Jack agreed with Alora, and was unconvinced by the priestess's reassurance. Though he knew they meant well, the crew of river giants had been fooled by the Order of the Infernal Harmony and the Redeemer into partying at the Soggy Pussy. Though they seemed intelligent enough when operating the ship, they had demonstrated poor judgment elsewhere. For another hour the journey continued. The signs became more frequent and more pronounced for the group. The snap of a twig, the rustle of leaves, and Jack could even swear he heard strange noises carried on the wind, though he couldn't identify what they were. He did his best to hold his nerve amidst the otherwise quiet forest, making sure not to let slip to their unwanted stalker that they were onto them. "Ah, shit!" He heard one of the river giants swear under their breath before he called out, "Captain, we've got a blockage ahead!" "Oh, you've got to be shitting me," Nika growled, as she spotted what the problem was. A massive tree had fallen across the river, positioned directly across the river almost like a bridge, its ancient, gnarled branches holding it firmly in place, creating a barrier that they'd have to deal with. "Full stop!" Captain Ripples on Salt called out, as the crew hurriedly got to work carrying out the order, loosening ropes and slowing the boat to prevent them from crashing. "Does anyone see anything?" "No, Captain!" Members of the crew called out one by one, but as the ship's speed slowed down to a crawl, Jack's gut feeling was telling him that something was wrong. His ring of the Berserker was tingling ever so slightly, and the last time that happened, things did not go well. He looked to the left side of the bank where he had first heard the noises and saw nothing. He spotted nothing on the right side either. Something was around, but where were they? Then he looked up. "Contact!" Jack yelled, as he immediately brought his heavy plasma rifle up and started blasting, catching the Zorn archers above them completely by surprise as they yelled out, shifting back on the vast thick tree branch they were perched on to get into cover. One was not so lucky as he stumbled too far backwards, the emaciated-looking, sickly yellow-skinned shit-goblin pitching over the edge of the branch, screaming in panic before he slammed into the river head first. He saw another Zorn stand up shakily, who frantically put his hands to his mouth before yelling out a noise as loud as they could, almost like the sound of a dying cow, before Jack's full auto ripped the creature to shreds, but not before the war cry was answered. "Holy shit!" Captain Ripples on Salt exclaimed, as he took more than a second to work out exactly what the fuck was happening. "Crew, to arms!" From either side of the river, several more whoops and war cries sounded out, as the group now very clearly saw two waves of movement from either side, far enough in the distance to not have been noticed previously, but now rushing into battle, sprinting as fast as they could. Nika noted that some of the creatures already looked like they were gassing out and faltering as they charged, clearly desperate to close the distance quickly and salvage the botched ambush, though she quickly took advantage and mercilessly let loose with her plasma rifle on full auto, causing some of the rushing Zorn to duck for cover, but the majority still charged recklessly into the line of fire. Did these idiots have a death wish? "Hold your ground and fend them off!" the captain yelled out. "Rain on Lakewater! Give me drums!" "Aye, Captain!" A female voice called out from on top of the building at the back, who quickly blasted out a heavy, thunderous rhythm that Jack really didn't see the logic of, until he felt some kind of strange energy that greatly enhanced his focus and filled him with confidence. "Kishali!" Priestess Flows and Streams cried out, finishing her spell that seemed to blanket everyone in the radius with a faintly glowing green light, though much fainter on Jack than the others. He hadn't a clue what had just happened, but he assumed it was probably good. "Watch out! They've got cavalry!" Scifi shouted, pointing with her finger as she dashed to the starboard side of the ship. "What?" Chio queried in confusion, before she saw it too. A new wave of Zorn was emerging from the dense underbrush on the right side of the river, charging forward to top formidable beasts that snarled and growled as they bared down on the riverboat with terrifying speed. They were unlike any creatures the Ilithi had ever seen before. Towering and muscular, they resembled a cross between a large feline and a reptilian predator, with sleek bottle-green scale bodies covered in red and brown tribal markings, and with razor-sharp claws that tore the ground with heavy footfalls. Their heads were adorned with bony ridges and horn-like protrusions, with thick fur covering their backs, and their eyes held a determined gaze as they dashed forward. Could such a creature leap onto the boat? "Ignizin!" Allura yelled out, as she quickly finished casting and flung her arms forward, sending a powerful fireball spearing out to smack into the lead beast, detonating in an almighty flash as it obliterated several of the beasts and sent many more into disarray, trying to buck their riders and flee from the fire. "Nicely done," Chio complimented. "Thanks," Allura panted, looking towards the broken charge of Zorn that were desperately trying to commit to the attack. "I would have thought they'd run by now." "This is far more coordination than I'd ever give Zorn credit for," Chio warned. "Stay alert." "The other side too!" the captain yelled out, as several of the beasts were cut down onto their riders by the heavy crossbows of the river giants. "We're wiping them out! Why aren't they breaking?" Scifi yelled out, as she let out an accurate burst to take out a Zorn hiding behind a tree. "Because they're stupid enough to attack in the first place," Nika growled, putting a Zorn down that had reached the bank of the river. "But why—" Suddenly, a loud, screeching bellow blasted out from above them that caused many of the river giants to gasp out in fear. "Plague Drake!" Captain Ripples on Salt shouted in warning. Jack spun around and fired at the new threat. To him, the creature in question looked to him like a grotesque fusion of bat, reptile and insect, with dark leathery wings spanning wide, ending with two claws at the tips. Their scales were a sickly shade of blackish brown, mottled with patches of diseased flesh and oozing sores. Their mouth grinned wide with jagged and broken teeth that dripped with saliva, and their eyes burned with a malevolent hunger for destruction. And what was even worse, were the other two following closely behind. Swirling above them, the lead plague drake dove down and opened its maw wide, unleashing a barrage of noxious fumes and corrosive spittle that sizzled against the deck as Jack dove out of the way. One of the river giants cried out, rolling on the deck to try and throw off the pain, before the quick-thinking Chio drew water from the nearby river and doused both them and the damaged deck, neutralizing the acid.
We can't let them get close, Allura warned. Shoot them out of the sky. Aim for their underbellies, wings, and head if you can.
The defenders rallied, quickly reloading their crossbows and refocusing on the major threat, even as several of the Zorn were galvanized by the arrival of the plague drakes and rallied to try and board the boat, even as they were forced back by the spear thrusts of the much more powerful river giants.
Pregala!
Priestess Flows and Streams yelled out, as a translucent orb of green surrounded the boat, absorbing a stream of acid in the nick of time as another cocky plague drake made a pass, paying for it as everyone on the ship with a ranged weapon instantly lit them up, causing the creature to crash down to the forest floor, dead before they even hit the ground. The other two drakes screamed in rage as they renewed their attack, twisting in the air to absorb the shots before passing over the boat at two different angles, one getting badly singed along its side as Allura cast another fireball, but clawing at two of the river giant crew in the process. The other charged headlong into them, digging its claws into the wood of the ship and tearing out a chunk, even as it seemed to fold in on itself for protection, lashing out with its foul breath at close range, causing everyone to duck for cover. "Aegis!" Jack yelled, summoning his shield to protect him further, before peeking out and spotting an opportunity as the plague drake arced his head around. Flicking a switch on his heavy plasma rifle, he quickly lined up his shot as the foul creature spread its wings to take to the skies. "Get noob-tube, motherfucker." As he pulled the trigger, he heard a whoomp noise as he unleashed a grenade, sending it hurtling through the air in a graceful arc before striking the plague drake dead center, engulfing it in a blinding flash of light and fire as it screeched in agony before it pitched back and collapsed into the river. Roaring with the anguish of defeat, the remaining plague drake battered its wings as hard as it could, the cowardly creature fleeing from the battle as the defenders all cheered. Though curiously, the Zorn weren't running. In fact, they all seemed emboldened somehow, futilely trying to climb up onto the boat even as they were slaughtered. "Mop these bastards up!" Ripples on Salt ordered in a triumphant bellow. "Show them what it means to attack the silt skimmer!" Many of the defenders cheered again as they hopped off the boat, quickly finishing off any Zorn that was still breathing, though Jack and the others didn't share the same sentiment as they did as ordered. Heading down a gangplank the crew had promptly erected, knowing that they would need to clear the blockade as quickly as they could and get out of the area. They effortlessly took down any of the few Zorn left that rushed towards them, and finished off any of the wounded that were still breathing as quickly and as painlessly as they could. Though even Jack knew the Zorn were evil creatures, that didn't mean they deserved an indignant death. Hearing a noise from the tree line, Jack spun around and spotted a still standing Zorn that seemed frozen in place. Taking them in for a moment, Jack could see it was a female, with a slight bump on their stomach and simple clothing made from mud and leaves. His terrified eyes noted him briefly, before quickly glancing back towards the forest, as if fearful of what was behind it. "Go! Get out of here! You lost!" Jack told them, causing it to briefly turn his head back to him. He knew from what the others told him that Zorn could barely be considered sapient, just enough for them to worship the foul god of disease and create a very primitive society. He sharply turned his head back to the forest, as if understanding Jack's intention, if not his words, though strangely it began shuddering hard, almost as if it was terrified. "We only fought to defend ourselves," Jack added, quickly looking to the others who were watching on. "Go! Be at peace if you can." It snapped back, drawing a sharp stone knife, holding it in a dagger grip as it stared at Jack, his eyes wide with fright. "Don't!" Jack scowled, raising his gun. Pregnant and non-threatening it may be right now, but his mercy had limits. "I won't harm you if you just turn around and go home." The creature shuddered again in fear, turning back to look at the forest before convulsing in terror. It looked back towards Jack with tears running free from its eyes, raising its knife with a white-knuckle grip, before plunging it into its own chest. As Jack's eyes went wide with horror, it stabbed again and again and again, falling to the ground as Jack ran up to them. "No!" he yelled in distress, looking down at the dying Zorn. "Why would you do that? Why would you do that?" The creature didn't answer. As the light left its eyes, his face was a mask of sheer, utter dread.